Line. Damian Collins is the Conservative MP for Folkestone and Hythe, chair of the Joint Select Committee on the Online Safety Bill. Damian, can you explain some of the recommendations, these new recommendations in this online safety bill?
Yes, thank you. The recommendations we've made bring new offences into the scope of the bill, write them on the face of the bill. It wasn't entirely clear before what the bill would do in terms of dealing with racial hatred or protecting women and girls from violent threats online. There wasn't a clear offence on glamorising and promoting self-harm. We've also recommended a new offence based on the work done by the Law Commissioner, looking at people spreading knowingly false information with the intent to cause harm, either physical harm or extreme psychological harm. So what we've done is we've brought these offences, some of them new, some of them that we clearly understand and know exist in the offline world, in the real world. And we're saying in the report, this is how they will be applied online. And the regulator will have the power to set minimum standards. So the laws that apply online will be based on our laws and offences in this country, ones that Parliament have created, not the rules that are written in Silicon Valley by the tech companies. So I think that will be a very important shift back to the primacy of the UK law and the power of the regulator to make sure the companies comply.
It's complicated, isn't it? Because as soon as you start giving duty of care to those companies, then you are actually changing the basis on which they do business. You're making them into publishers, as it were, rather than platforms. And that seems to be at the very heart of the difficulty with this. I mean, if you look recently at the Rohingya case launched against Facebook, you know, if the Rohingya win that case, then it'll be very much because they've made Facebook into a company that's responsible for publishing or allowing people to publish, in that case, you know, hate speech. So, I mean, is there a way of actually tackling this that doesn't change the nature of what those tech giants do? Do you not have to blatantly go, you are not this, you are that?
Well, I think we have to absolutely base the law based on what the companies do and make them responsible for what they do. And they do a lot more than hosting content. If all they did was, if people posted content on Facebook, for example, or on YouTube, and they shared it with other people, or people chose what they wanted to watch, then you might say, well, the platform plays a very limited role in boosting it. But that's not how it works at all. Most of what people see is recommended to them by the platform. So on YouTube, about 70% of what people watch, they don't search for, it's selected for them and it's auto-played for them based on what they think they like. You know, there was a recent study showing that on Facebook, 64% of people who joined Facebook groups that were sharing extremist content did so at Facebook's active recommendation because it thought that's what they liked. You know, we heard during the inquiry stories of, you know, vulnerable teenage girls who'd previously engaged with content that promoted extreme dieting or self-harm, and as a consequence, they were served more of that content by the platform because it thought that that's what they wanted. So those decisions on what content to boost and promote, who the audience for it is going to be, that's all based on data Facebook has gathered about its users, and it is deciding to push that content at them to keep them engaged with the platform for longer so that they can make more money. So they've designed the system to make money for themselves, and therefore they're responsible for it. They're responsible for what they promote and what they allow to exist at scale, how they allow people to use their tools and systems. And that's what the regulator brings in scope. Because many people might say with these offences, well, if these offences already exist, why aren't they being applied online? The problem is often they were being applied at the person who posted the bad content. There was no sense of what the liability of the platform was. Well, my view is, and the view of the reporters and the committee, is that the platforms have clear liabilities when they are making money out of content and they're boosting and promoting content to make money out of it. And therefore, there are offences that apply to them, and therefore they have duties to mitigate, you know, harmful content, to make sure it doesn't spread, or not to actively promote it, or to remove it when necessary.
These are huge, you know, global corporations, as we know. They're going to be vehemently against much of what you've just said because it damages their business model entirely, or changes their business model entirely. Does the UK government have enough power, do you think, to regulate them? I mean, you know, if we become, you know, pioneering in terms of our stand against them, don't they just move on to other markets and think, you know, we'll leave Britain behind?
Well, firstly, the UK is still a very important market for them. and they have to abide by the laws that are set in the countries where they do business. Some other countries have already started to look at some of these issues. Germany makes the social media companies responsible for removing hate speech, on their platforms, things like Holocaust denial, of which there are very clear laws in Germany. There's just been a test case in Australia where the Australian government requires Facebook and Google to compensate news publishers for the use of their content on their platforms. France has a disinformation law around elections. So you can introduce national legislation to do this. We will probably be the first country in the world to do so in such a comprehensive way. But other countries are watching. In Europe, the European Commission is working on a Digital Services Act, which has many similar aims to the Online Safety Bill. And in America, there is a growing debate now that says that there must be clear liabilities for the companies, but certainly for the worst forms of content on their platform. So I think we are leading this debate in this country, but it's a debate people are having all around the world. And over the next few years, I think we will see more legislation coming in that will create exactly those sorts of responsibilities for the companies and clear sanctions and penalties for them if they don't comply.
We talked to Maria Miller recently, who was campaigning against, the sort of deep fakes that are occurring more and more, where a random person can have their whole life destroyed by being pictured, by having their picture manipulated online and then distributed.
Yes.
And also in terms of cyber flashing, which isn't even a crime. I wonder what your feeling is about age restriction now, because that's very much been one of the things that have, a lot of people have called for, because if children can access all of this, they are living in a wilderness in which it makes it almost pointless for us to try and guide them in the real world.
Yeah. Well, first on those points, so deepfake pornography will be captured by the recommendations we've made, because it would clearly be knowingly false material distributed with malicious intent, and that will be captured by the regulator. Cyber flashing is made an offence, the recommendation from the Law Commissioner that it should be, which we've endorsed in the report. On age, we're saying the companies have got to have systems in place. We're not going to stipulate which technology they use, but they've got to have systems in place